Episode of Live with Littledata. This week, we're going to look at more in depth at Google Analytics settings. Now, I know it's a bit boring, but it's essential that you look at these at least when you're setting up the account for the first time. Now, I know a lot of you might have set up Google Analytics over the last couple of months, but I just think it's a good checklist to just go through and make sure that you have got all of the right settings, because there really are some critical things that will stop you getting the most out of your property if you don't have them set up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at the Littledata merchandise store account. I think we've looked at this one previously, and I'm going to walk you through the list of the recommendations we have how to do the setup. So let's start it at the top. Okay. So here's our merchandise store, and to go to the settings, we're going to click on the admin in the bottom left-hand corner. And really what I'm going to go down is this property level settings. I will leave the account settings for now. So first of all, setup assistant, you can basically skip this. This is all the stuff that we're going to do. Some of it we recommend, some of it we think is less useful, but quite a lot of the stuff, start on the data collection, something we've already done. So let's start at property settings. So first of all, have a sensible name for the property, your company name, industry category doesn't really know, but reporting time zone, quite important. It's best if this time zone matches your store's time zone. And in fact, when you now set up Littledata, we automatically check for that and match it. So for example, if I'm trading in West Coast US, what I want to do is set this up for United States. And that's right, Los Angeles time. Same for currency. Again, I'm actually going to change, well, I'm going to put that back to a little United Kingdom where we are. But I'm going to change the currency to GBP because I actually want to report pounds, British pounds. There we go. So that's the property settings. Next, we have the property access management. So here's all a list of the people who you might have access to the property. Just go through there and make sure that there's no one there that you don't want to have access and that they have the right restrictions. So generally you want to have as fewer editors as possible. That means that there's a less risk that the settings get changed. As we'll come on to, some of these settings can be irreversible and have a major impact on what you can report on. So I recommend restricting the access management for editors to those that know what they're doing, and also for viewers to those that actually need the data. Again, because we don't have views in Google Analytics 4, if you're a viewer of the property, you can see all of the data in there, including all of the purchase revenue data. Right, next up on the list, data streams. Well, again, this is not really something we need to touch. If you do have native apps, you might also want to set up a data stream to capture that. It's not something Littledata currently does. But Google Analytics 4 supports to capture that alongside web. Currently, you'd just be having one web data stream. That's enough. Events. So we'll come on to custom dimensions. It's got a prompt here. I'll just miss that. But this really just gives you a quick idea of what events are being sent. Now, here's something really important. The purchase, you'll see this mark as conversion column. So the purchase event is automatically marked as a conversion. That's fine. Now, I do not recommend switching any of these other conversions. So if they are, for example, if something like begin checkout as marked conversion, turn it off. And the reason you want to turn it off is otherwise, in all your reporting, it'll imply that, including in Google Ads, it'll imply that the people beginning the checkout have actually converted. And in fact, they'll duplicate the purchases. So if you're an e-commerce store, conversions should be purchases. There should be no difference there. You don't want to track, for example, ads to cart as conversions, because in your ad campaigns you'll over-optimize. You'll get lots of people who are adding to cart but not actually buying. You really want to optimize for purchases, and that should be the only conversion. Okay, next one is conversions. Again, we've kind of just covered this. You'll see all the ones that are marked as conversions. All you should see here is purchases. You shouldn't see anything else. Don't do new conversion event. Audiences. Well, I'm going to come back to this, but we want to basically set up custom audiences that we can share with Google Ads. But let's look at custom definitions first of all. Right, custom definitions. So there's lots of clever stuff that Littledata sends alongside the standard e-commerce properties, and this is sent to Google Analytics. It's captured in the server, but it's not shown in your reports unless you create a custom dimensional metric. Now, you have only a certain number of these, but you have 25 user scopes, custom dimensions, 50 event scopes, 10 item scopes. So you've got a fairly high, this is just on a normal free Google Analytics 4 account. So you've got a fairly high number, and in this account, we're just really using 3 user scopes and 2 event scopes. So what's an example of a user scoped custom dimension? Well, that would be something like lifetime revenue. Let me just show you how you do this. So what you do is you have a scope here, so user, and you can select from different properties. Now this time is lifetime revenue Littledata. Now what I'm going to do is just show you how we can create a different user scope custom dimension. So what I get to do is I select from here, and I can do lifetime revenue LD. This is actually the updated naming. I'll link you to the data schema in the notes. So I can say, right, I want to create this thing. So this is going to be lifetime revenue. And this shows all the sum of the purchases of this user on Shopify. So it's not the lifetime value as mentioned in Google Analytics. It's actually all of the purchases that user has made on Shopify even before Google Analytics 4. Now I couldn't edit this one, so I'm just going to have to archive it. So I can't edit custom dimensions once set up. I'm just going to archive that. And a bit of a bug here from Google, but yes, we can't use it through the product. We understand that. Okay, so that's how it's set up. User scoped one. Again, we have an example here of an event scoped one called affiliation. So affiliation is effectively the order tags that tells us where the orders come from. So whether it's come through your web store, point of sale, iOS app, recurring purchase, any of those things would show up in affiliation. Now, you can't use it in reports, annoyingly, in GA4 until you set it up as a custom definition here. So again, this is all stored. The property is stored, event parameters stored in the back end, but this is how you surface it in the reports. Okay, and then custom metric, again, something like shipping, example here. So I can just create another one. So for example, I might want to create currency as a custom metric. Again, I'm going to, so it's a currency, and yeah, both of those 2 things are fine. So currency. Okay, now let's go back to audiences and show you how you use those custom definitions. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new audience, and there's some general ones, but let's create a custom audience. And what I want to do is use that lifetime value user scope dimension I've got, and I want to say where lifetime value. Now, this is greater than 100 at any point in time. So this will create me an audience. Again, I've got sorry, I need to provide a, so lifetime value greater than $100. Here we go. Now it's not actually showing me anything there. I think that's because I don't have many purchases over the last 30 days. I can set to maximum limit. Now here's the important thing to understand about audiences. When you create this audience, this is the summary of users who would be in it, but they're not immediately available to market to, because it takes time for that audience to build, for the cookies to be set. So I am going to need to wait for that to work. I could also just go back to our affiliation one. Here we go, event scoped affiliation. So note difference. Item affiliation is something different. We want the event scoped affiliation. So I could say where affiliation contains shop app, and that's going to show me all of the people who purchased through the shop app, which currently one person in the audience. And again, I could rename that as purchasers from shop app. Okay, so there you go. Pretty useful thing. I can now retarget people who have bought from the shop app. That's audiences. Lots more to learn about that. Now let's come on to data settings. So it's a pretty important ones down here. Now, first of all, data collection. So first on this Google Signals. We highly recommend you using Google Signals. It's basically the way that Google can capture the information about people who logged in on a Google device. So for example, if the user's logged in and they've consented for ads for personalization, Google can then retarget them based on their interests or so on. So you can do this by region, so you can turn it on and off for different regions. I don't see why you wouldn't do it for all regions, assuming that you've got a privacy policy that allows that says you're going to be tracking them using Google's cookies. But that is, as we'll come on to next, there is a limitation. This will cause thresholding in your reports, but you can change that by changing the reporting identity. So effectively turning Google Signals on but not using reporting identity is the best solution we covered a couple of weeks ago. Finally, you can have granular location device data. Again, this is actually set by default on. I mean, if you're disabling it, you're basically it's a privacy thing. You might want to just, again, in certain regions, like for example in Germany, has higher, more specific laws about capturing this. But again, by default, probably would have collected on. And again, advanced personalization. You can do personalization in different regions. Again, by default, it's on for all. I'm going to leave it like that. Right, data retention. Here's a gotcha. So the default is 2 months, which means that basically after 2 months, all of the actual kind of user identifiable data, cookies, advertising identifiers, these will be wiped after 2 months. Now you don't want that. I know it's private for the user, but frankly, 14 months is still a reasonable period to track people over. It doesn't mean to say there's, even if it was a data breach at Google Analytics, these are all pseudo-anonymous identifiers. It's not like someone's going to download a list of your customers, but it is important for reporting that you can go back more than 2 months and get the granular reports, and also to reset the user data on your activity, which means if they visit 6 months ago and then they visit again tomorrow, the 14 months starts from tomorrow, not from 6 months ago. So 14 months, and yes, reset user data on your activity. Data filters. This is really to make sure that you're setting up the internal traffic filtering. So I can exclude, here I've got a special parameter set up, so I can make sure the internal traffic types are set up, but I could also filter by some other means. So if I create a filter, I could just basically filter debug mode traffic. And the nice thing about the filters is I can say, I do want to see it for testing, but I don't want to see it in the actual live reports. Channel groups. Again, I'm not going to delve too deeply into customer channel grouping, but just to say that there is a default channel grouping. It may not fit your purposes, and you can change that. So you can change the rules of how the UTM parameters are grouped into marketing channels. I'll skip over data import. This is if you want to get really cost data into Google Analytics for another topic, for another conversation. And then reporting identity. Right, so here's another important one. The default when you see come into here is blended. And the problem we found with blended is that it doesn't work as well as device-based. In theory, it's better, but however Google's doing the stitching together, of course, these 4 different methods, it's not working very well. And I think that's to do with the way that Littledata does the server-side tracking. So The gotcha is that you don't even see the right report here. You have to go to this little show all button here, and then you see device-based, and then device-based is what we recommend. So two advantages here. Device-based will make sure that you actually have better attribution to campaigns and channels, but it will also make sure that you don't get thresholding on your reports. So the reason Google does the thresholding is they don't want you to be able to accidentally identify an individual using Google Signals. If you use Google Signals, they deliberately sort of obfuscate the small data groups. Now, we actually want to be able to drill into reports, so device-based is actually better in those two ways. And yes, it'll say, "Do you sure you don't want to confirm that?" But yes, you really do, because it's not a good option to use blended. Okay, bear with me. We're going to just get to the end of the list here. So attribution settings. So definitely I would accept the default here, data-driven. It takes a fair volume of data to work well, but there's no real downside over last click. It basically means that where it can figure out that there's a channel which is highly contributing further up the funnel, it will weight it higher. So yes, it's a black box, but it is a fairer view of which campaigns have brought users when there is multiple campaigns within the user journey. Definitely recommend that paid and organic channels get credit. So if you just see Google paid channels, none of the other non-Google campaigns you do, for example, Facebook, email through Klaviyo, all those things, they won't get credit. And frankly, to have an even view, you should you want to see those things as well. Conversion window, bit of a debate over here. I recommend the recommended, which is basically the longest possible conversion window. The reason to have a shorter conversion window is you might want to have less pollution of your data from previous campaigns. So if you think you have a short consideration cycle, maybe a fairly quick purchase, you're in fast fashion or something similar, you might want to change this to 7 days and 30 days so that you any campaigns that happen before the current month are not included in the attribution. Property change history was nothing to actually check here, but it just allows me to see here that I'm changing settings on the property. So I've changed that reporting identity. I added a custom metric. So it's pretty useful just as an audit check to see when someone did something. Data deletion requests. This is if you've somehow messed up and you've accidentally sent incorrect data or in fact personally identifiable data on a certain range, you can request that Google delete this. So for example, I could just delete all parameters and events from a date to a date, or I could delete selected parameters. So I could say, right, I just want to delete the campaign. So for example, I got that wrong. Debug view. So this is really just enables you to see stuff that's been filtered out. So it's quite useful if you just want to check that certain events are firing, even though you don't want to see them in the real reports. Right, Google AdSense. Well, kind of less useful if you're an e-commerce brand. You're probably not running Google Ads on your site, but you definitely want to do Google Ads links and link your Google Ad account to Google Analytics. That basically enables the data to flow both ways, to share that conversions and audience data into Google Ads, and also enable you to pull auto tagging, pulling cost and campaign data into Google Analytics. Ad manager links, again, if you've got a Google Ad Manager account. BigQuery, we've covered previously. I highly recommend setting up a BigQuery link. This will allow you to have to future-proof your data store, have a data warehouse on the cheap that you can use in the future. Again, if you've got Google Merchant Center set up, here's where you can link it. Google Play, Search Ads 360, and Search Console. Again, I highly recommend setting up a Search Console that enables you to see what keywords are being used on this web property. Okay, that's all we have time for today. That's a quick run through of property settings, and I would just summarize by saying, if I had to pick 3 things to do today, first of all, go down to data settings and data collection, turn on Google Signals. That's really powerful. You can't do it in retrospect. The second thing I would do is go to reporting identity, change it to device-based. You can change that back and forth so that it's not permanent, but the reports are going to be quite limited if you keep it on blended, especially when you enable Google Signals. So do those two things together. And then finally, I think the third thing to do is to go into into custom definitions and make sure that you've got these custom dimensions set up, because there's a lot more reporting possibilities if you can look at stuff like taxes, shipping, lifetime revenue in your reports. Okay, I hope that was all helpful for you. We'll be back next week with one of our real deep data experts, Igor, talking a bit more about the setup and tracking of your store. As ever, if you have any questions, please reach out to the team here at Littledata. We've got lots more expertise, and we'll be publishing a help article to kind of summarize what I've come through in this chat today. See you all next week. Bye.